Hi, I'm Buffy and I talk about movies because why not? Today I'll be talking about Frankenstein 2025, directed by Guillermo del Toro and starring Oscar Isaac, Jacob Elordi, I hope I'm saying that right, Mia Goth, I love her name by the way, and Christoph Waltz. Frankenstein is based on a novel of the same name, written by Mary Shelley, and I think everyone is familiar with this story, but if any of you aren't, let me just give you a brief synopsis without any spoilers. The story is about a brilliant but egotistical and extremely ambitious doctor who creates a monster as a result of a medical experiment, I guess is the shortest way to summarize this plot. Now, I've read the book and I've also seen the Kenneth Branagh film that stars Robert De Niro as the monster, but truth be told, I really didn't remember any specific plot points in this story. I only remember the overall message and allegory present in the novel, but I still decided to go into this film without rereading Frankenstein, so I was extremely surprised by certain changes made in the story, but I chucked it up to my absolutely horrid memory when it comes to books. So when I decided that I was going to make this video, I bravely dusted off my own copy of the novel, but then instead of rereading it, decided to just skim a couple of pages at the end of the novel, and then just thought, why reread the book when there's Amanda the Jedi doing God's work? My personal hero, baby. So I just checked her video out. Maybe you guys also should go and watch her video. Her video is certainly better than mine could ever be, but please don't do that. Please stay. Actually, do whatever you want. I'm not your boss. Or your dad. Anyway, let's just get into talking about this film. I usually really love Guillermo del Toro's visual style, and he did not disappoint in that aspect of this film either. Every single set piece, view, and design choice is pretty breathtaking. The use of color is peculiar and deliberate. The cinematography is masterful and purposeful and somewhat theatrical. It seems though in Guillermo del Toro's hands, this story just grew in scale, becoming unimaginably grand and sort of overwhelming even. Frankenstein is not a quaint story by any means, as far as I remember, but everything in this film seems so huge, literally. I absolutely loved the practical effects employed in this film, the animatronics, the body parts, the blood, the set pieces, absolutely loved all of it. Can't say the same about some CGI though, especially animals and fire. I don't know if it was a budgeting issue, time restraint issue, or what, but the CGI was extremely distracting at times, especially in contrast with all the practical effects used in the film. The creature's makeup was superbly done, even though our boy from the Kissing Booth movies, what a crazy promotion that is, by the way, wasn't even remotely scary or creepy enough for certain aspects of the film to occur and work well, in my opinion. But in combination with Jacob Elordi's physicality, the monster was an impactful presence, which leads me to the acting in this movie, which is extremely good across the board, in my opinion. I can speak on these American people's English accents since I'm always struggling with my own. But aside from that, I thought Oscar Isaac did a phenomenal job, appropriately theatrical most of the time, and subtle whenever it was required from him, which was not a lot, let's be honest, but still. Oscar Isaac is a fantastic actor in general, and I always loved watching him, but not only because he's extremely attractive, but also because he's a solid actor, and you can always assume that he will be delivering a believable performance. So I'm always happy to watch him. Jacob Elordi was a big surprise to me in this film. As I said, I knew of him as that guy in the Kissing Booth movies, which, by the way, I haven't seen. I've only seen reviewers making fun of the film, if I'm honest. But I was quite impressed with his performance in Frankenstein. His role calls for a lot of physical acting since he has limited spoken lines to deliver, but he did a great job expressing the character through his movements, and he did an appropriately theatrical job of delivering the few lines of dialogue that were not part of an inner monologue. I know it's not an inner monologue. Technically, it was a story he was telling the captain, but it served the purpose of an inner monologue in the film. Overall, a solid performance by Jacob Elordi. Right? That's the name. Okay. Mia Goth was captivating and ethereal and still relatable. She was playing two characters, Victor's mother and Victor's love interest, which, oh boy, that's some Oedipus complex stuff going on right there. Christoph Waltz was charismatic and a blast to watch as always. So the acting was solid considering the material they were given, which was kind of theatrical and dramatic and cheesy at times. My biggest problem with the film, outside of some changes that were made in the story itself, was the dialogue. The movie often just spells out the message very blatantly, as though the writers don't really trust their audience. I guess it's a Netflix problem overall. I can't think of the same issue in Del Toro's other work, but I might just not remember it. So I don't know why, but multiple times during the movie, I'd realize what the movie was implying about characters on screen, but then one of them would voice my thoughts almost verbatim, just more dramatically. I don't like that, to be honest. I want filmmakers and studios to trust the audience in getting the message, especially since it's not delivered that subtly, really. I understand Netflix's tendency to ask the filmmakers for a second screen-friendly delivery, meaning you'd understand what's happening in the film or show, even if you're looking at your phone for the majority of the runtime. But you have to understand that anyone who decide to watch a 2.5-hour movie directed by Guillermo del Toro would probably be paying enough attention to draw surface-level conclusions on their own. So yeah, the hitting over the head was a bit annoying. Now, when we're talking about movies based on books, don't get me wrong, I don't think movies based on books must not take artistic liberties or try to change the overall message of the book. Usually, however, we see filmmakers intentionally disregard or misinterpret the original message, which makes the end product shallow or sometimes nonsensical or completely pointless. The movies that stay truer to the text work better in general. However, I don't think filmmakers are obligated to follow the novel to a T in order to be successful or achieve the intended effect. A great example of that is Clockwork Orange or The Shining. These movies take a completely different approach to storytelling than we see in the books that they're based on. Even a film like Annihilation doesn't follow the book bit by bit, but has the same intended effect on the audience in the end. It's a powerful and impactful cinematic experience that you don't need to have read the book to understand or enjoy. I still haven't seen Woman in the Dunes, but I've heard that the movie is even better than the book, which is so rare. That all is to say that I don't think it's impossible to improve upon the original text through changes made in the script. It's just that the changes made in Frankenstein were a mixed bag for me. I liked some of the changes and thought they amplified the effect of the allegory that we're presented with in the story, but I thought some other changes actually misrepresented the overall message. So let's talk about these details and some others in the spoiler section of the video. If you don't want the movie and the book to be spoiled for you, skip to the next chapter of this video. Here's your spoiler warning. 3, 2, 1. Spoilers ahoy! Okay, let's start with a simple one. The boy's too hot, okay? He's too hot to be this scary monster. I think his height and his voice do most of the heavy lifting when it comes to him being a menacing presence, I guess. But when you spot him from a distance, he's just a dude. A little deformed looking maybe, perhaps, but there's a war going on. I would imagine you'd come across some disfigured people after a full-on war, right? So him being scary to, like, regular folks doesn't make much sense to me. He should be treated like a monster just based on his horrific looks. But our kissing booth boy, what's his face, Jacob Elordi, is just hot. So when the hunters in the forest just start shooting at him, it feels like they have no reason to do that. He doesn't look monstrous. Not to say that the makeup artist did a bad job on the creature. I just think the design should have ended up being more disturbing for this message to work. And another teeny tiny gripe I have with the creature is that when he growls, he sounds like a fucking lion. Why? He has human vocal cords in him. Why does he sound like an animal? It's my pet peeve when that happens in movies, so maybe it didn't bother you. It bothered me for some goddamn reason. In the beginning of the book, you just hear a roar like a lion. I'm like, isn't he supposed to be, like, made of human parts? Did he get lion's vocal cords just for the roaring? Anyway, now these points definitely don't make or break a movie for me. They just take me out of the immersion and make it harder for me to suspend my disbelief. But these are my most minor gripes with the film. Now let's talk about the changes in the story. One thing that was changed that I absolutely loved was that Dr. Victor Frankenstein's father is an absolute dick in this film. I think this change fits perfectly with the story since Frankenstein is basically an allegory for parenthood in my opinion. That's what I got from it anyway when I first read it, and that's how I've always looked at this story. So in the book, Victor's father is just like a nice man, right? But if we want to hone in the message of you become the person that you're being treated as, you are a reflection of your parents, these messages are perfectly illustrated by how Victor's father treats him and then how Victor treats his creation, his son, for all intents and purposes. So I liked that change in the story. It amplifies the message. I also loved the fact that, again, Mia Goth plays both Victor's mother and Elizabeth. I love a good Oedipus complex representation in my allegories for parenthood, okay? I also liked that in this version, the creature asks for a companion of any kind, not just a wife for himself. He just doesn't want to be alone and isolated and unable to die for eternity. I don't know. I just liked that angle more. However, there are some issues that I have with certain changes that were made in this script. I didn't like the fact that the creature doesn't do anything bad the whole time except for lash out on Victor and lash out at Victor and this family when they try to kill him. I didn't like it because it undermines the point of the story. You treat people the way you're treated, and then you become this self-fulfilling prophecy, meaning that you actually do become the thing that people perceive you as and expect you to be while trying to punish them for their expectations. In the book, and I'm gonna trust Amanda the Jedi on this one because I didn't reread the entire book, the monster does a bunch of horrific stuff, including killing Elizabeth. I don't remember specifically how many people he killed in the book, but I remember that he had become a bit of a monster by the end of it. That was my impression. That didn't happen in the movie, but I do understand why. They wanted the creature to be a sympathetic character to the end, so I get it, and I don't think it ruins the movie overall. What I do believe ruins the movie for me is one of the final scenes of the film. Let me get to it. Let me fucking get to it because I write on paper, bitch. Okay. I already talked about the characters, spelling out every single thing that the audience should be inferring on their own, and that includes the final dialogue between Victor and the creature, which doesn't happen in the book at all. In this dialogue, Victor calls this creature his son, and the creature calls Victor father.
Father!
I don't understand why this change was made. I honestly do not. In the book, Victor just fucks off into the afterlife while he's still going on and on about how the monster must die or whatever. He never gets to listen to the monster's side of the story and then redeem himself. Obviously, Guillermo del Toro wanted to have the creature's POV in the film, which I think is a good addition to the narrative voice. I'm not sure if we can use this term in filmmaking, but I'm doing it anyway. But I think it should have been done differently. Maybe we hear Victor's tale, then he drops dead while encouraging everyone to kill the hot monster. Then the creature comes out of the shadows and drops his POV on us, mourns his father without Victor getting a redemption arc, and still forgives him without Victor actually asking for it. Here's the thing. People who have egomaniacal or narcissistic parents probably will agree with me. They do not ask for forgiveness because they do not believe that they've done anything wrong. They gave you life. What more are you asking for?
I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to hurt you. I made you.
You're their property to do with as they please. And of course, I'm simplifying it, obviously, but you get what I mean, right? So a lot of the times, children who are raised by people like that do not get that closure through their parents admitting their wrongdoings. If they decide to forgive them, it happens completely on their own accord, without the parent even wanting to redeem themselves. Again, in their eyes, they've done nothing wrong, right? So when the children do forgive them, it's a way to get the control of your own narrative, of your own life back in a way, right? So in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the allegory works perfectly, in my opinion. Victor dies, the creature mourns and forgives him, and then decides to burn himself to death. He's left with the impression that he should have never been born, which is what happens with children of neglectful or hateful, abusive parents. But in the film, Victor gets a redemption arc, and a super cheesy one at that.
Say my name the way you said it at the beginning, when it meant the world to you. Victor.
This is the worst!
The dialogue was cheesy as all hell. I don't know what purpose that served, honestly. If you have any thoughts about that, what might have been the motivator for the writers to change this outcome, other than it's more hopeful, I guess, please let me know, because I really don't understand. But then again, there's always a chance that I'm dumb and missing something. So let me know, okay? But yeah, I absolutely hated that change, honestly. It goes against Victor's character and the overall theme of the story, in my opinion. The ending of the film was also changed, which I didn't have a huge problem with, honestly. The creature doesn't pledge to burn himself to death because now we know that that wouldn't work because he kind of blew himself up, but that didn't kill him. So I guess that's why it was changed. He just goes off into the sunset, which makes sense, and I don't mind it that much. I was just kind of shocked when I watched it because I misremembered the book. I thought he died at the end. I guess that's how I interpreted it at the time when I read it, and that's how I remembered it. Overall, I don't think this changes much. I was just really surprised by it. I'm still not a huge fan of that decision though. Now, my final thoughts about the film. I enjoyed Frankenstein, but I was a bit disappointed by it, just based on Guillermo del Toro's track record. Visually, it was phenomenal outside of the CGI animals and really well thought out and purposeful. It was theatrical, it was entertaining, insanely gory at parts, which I absolutely love, and engaging. It's too bad that the book is much, much better in my opinion, and the dialogue was super cheesy at parts. If you can overlook these shortcomings and also don't care about how well the underlying message of the story is delivered, I think you'll love this film way more than I did. I still recommend watching it just for the visual flair of it, but the more I think about Frankenstein and how the original story was presented, the more disappointed I feel, I'm afraid. So watch at your own discretion, okay? If you haven't read the book but have seen the movie, please let me know what you thought about it and if any of the things that I pointed out had struck you as odd or out of place. I would love to know. Now, as always, thank you so very much for watching this video. Subscribe if you're interested in more movie reviews and if you feel like it, of course, and I'll see you next time. Bye! For all intents and purposes.